10 canoeists make their way through the Arafura swamp in northern Arnhem Land. The Yolngu people of the Raminganing community use this land to fish, to hunt and to gather, predominantly goose eggs and crocodile eggs. This photograph was taken in 1937 by Donald Thompson, an Australian anthropologist who strongly bonded with and studied the Yolngu people. It is this photograph that inspired the 2006 film 10 Canoes, co-directed by Dutch-Australian director Rolf de Heer and First Nations actor Peter Jagir. The film is almost entirely spoken in the languages of the Yolngu Matha language groups of northeast Arnhem Land. Whilst the film is credited to Rolf de Heer first, it cannot be overstated how important Peter Jagir's contributions to the film are. Jagir is a member of the people of the Arafura swamp, a man regarded in the community as the local expert in catching crocodiles. As co-director, Jagir was extensively involved in casting, locations, logistics, as well as being a liaison between the Yolngu people and community and the Balanda crew, their word for the white people. Here, in 10 Canoes, the place is a canvas for the nested narrative to unfold, a story that stretches many thousands of years. David Goldplow tells the story from the present as a reflection, before we flash back to what could be the mid-1930s, told in black and white in a direct homage to Thompson's photographs, before we flash back further again as Minnie Galulu tells a moral story to D&D. I think the central component to representation is not only what is depicted, but also what isn't depicted. The black and white scenes represent the place and the people through the eyes of someone like Thompson, a quiet, peaceful observer of these people, who very well could be off-camera watching them, or even holding the camera itself. But if we are to infer that these scenes take place in the 1930s, we must also pay attention to the ongoing genocide against the First Nations people, and the impact of the White Australia policy on other parts of the country, which in particular manifests itself in the stolen generation. Decolonisation is defined as the act of withdrawing political, military and governmental rule of a colonised land by the people who have invaded it. In 10 Canoes, the film takes a symbolic approach to this concept by separating the land and people from colonisation, which is done by setting the majority of the film long before Australia's invasion. With the looming threat of colonisation 1,000 years away, give or take, the antagonists are comparatively a much smaller threat compared to what their descendants and many First Nations people would endure. A quote from an article by Tony Birch on this theme struck enough of a nerve for me to write multiple paragraphs on it in a blog post. He mentioned former Prime Minister John Howard and how in 1996 he infamously invited the nation to share in his relaxed and comfortable view of history, rather than face the realities of colonial violence and attempted dispossession. It is an ongoing conservative trait, a blatant ignorance of issues that do not affect old white men in positions of power. I feel like I can tie this to 10 Canoes by looking at this idea of a relaxed and comfortable history, and repurposing it into something more indigenous. And I've come to the conclusion that what we are seeing in 10 Canoes is the relaxed and comfortable history of these people, but instead of sweeping genocide and mistreatment under the carpet, it wipes colonisation out altogether. For all First Nations people of Australia, I believe what they would define as a relaxed and comfortable history ended on January 26, 1788. The goal of the White Australia policy and the stolen generation, mentioned in our last lecture, was to separate the First Nations people from their history. Perhaps 10 Canoes can be seen as a way for the people of the Arafura swamp and the people of Arnhem Land to reclaim that history.